I can't do that. Looks good? Okay, so then we're good with that. So, let's get into talking a little bit about what happened in previous years. I could also start like around here. That's probably what most of you guys will know. Last year's Worlds and then the years before. But all the way back in the day. By the way, once again, I'll link this in chat so you guys can follow along if you cannot really read this. So this is the picture we're talking about, made by Ryuzaki_VGC. Go follow her on Twitter. She does. She's also been around forever in the community and has helped, like, in the early years a lot with Pokemon Online server. Anyway, so yeah, this is the first year of well, it's technically not the first year of Worlds, but it's the first year with a system that is remarkably close to what we had or what we were used to at the moment. So yeah, the world champion used Smeargle, Bronzong, Snorlax and Metagross, just like I was just saying, and the strategy there was to set up Trick Room really early on by going, I think it was level 1 Smeargle too, and then Smeargle would go down, like turn 1 like follow me, turn 1 like fake out Trick Room, turn 2 follow me, Hypnosis or something, and then what he did, I'm not sure if he had Hypnosis, it was either Hypnosis or Iron Head. Anyway, the Bronzong also had Rock Slide and Psych Up, and the Snorlax of course had Belly Drum, and the Metagross also had Psych Up, so he would Belly Drum, then Psych Up, get the boosts, and then just sweep the team. And then yeah, I think he had double Rock Slide somewhere, and the Bronzong used Rock Slide to flinch, so yeah, that was a pretty powerful team, and managed to win Worlds that year. I didn't actively play that season, and there was also no real way to follow anything about that tournament, so I'm not really like entirely sure about what the other teams did, but yeah, that was your regular or like a common rain setup, having Ludicolo and then a Mon that sets up Rain Dance. So turn 1, what you would do is go Fake Out and Rain Dance, and then turn 2 you would go for like Surf with the Ludicolo to generate HP back on the Vaporeon, and then you also had 2 more Mons. Like, basically it was 4 water type Mons, and that actually made it to the top 4 of Worlds that year. And this is more of what developed into to be the standard of the next season's format, since the only real difference between 2009 and 2008, despite the fact that now you had 6 Mons and could rearrange them, but you didn't have team preview, which is like, what? Super weird. But yeah, team preview didn't exist back then. And so yeah, you had platinum moves here, but this is more of like a pretty standard team. However, again, it wasn't the standard teams that really dominated this tournament. Instead, yeah, Katsuki Tsuji won the tournament with Empoleon and Toxicroak lead. So yeah, it looks like the Mons are not really in order, and there wasn't really too much of an order anyway. But yeah, most of the time what he would do is lead Toxicroak and Empoleon, and the Toxicroak had Fake Out, the Empoleon had Icy Wind and Surf, so he could Surf, and with Dry Skin he would generate back HP from the Toxicroak. And then he also had like a couple of more standard Mons in like Ludicolo, Metagross, Snorlax, and Salamence. All of those were pretty common. But then the second place, Tasuku Mano, also had a really strange team. By the way, the finals match for that is up on YouTube, and you should definitely check it out. The game 2 of that finals, like, I think to this day is probably one of the hypest matches. Like, okay, actually it was pretty much a steamroll, but you should still definitely check out the final, because the second game of the final was like super crazy in my opinion. And it includes like probably the most memorable moment of that World Championship. But yeah, you should check that out, and you can just get there by googling the names, I think, like Tsuji and Mano, and then, I don't know what, Pokemon Worlds. And they played the finals on Battle Revolution, which was also cool. They had a special version for Pokemon Battle Revolution, because usually you had team preview there, but those guys didn't have team preview, so that was also pretty cool to see. And then the other 2 players from the US, that made it into the top cut, both used rain-based teams. Interesting story about Grace Beck. At the time of the tournament, she didn't really know the type chart, I think. And rumors state that she got quite a bit of help by people who were not playing, and she managed to get to the top 4 of Worlds like that. Anyway, moving on. 2010 was like, okay, as you can see, like all the first 3 years, it was basically only Japan and US. In 2008, Europe didn't have a circuit or anything, so it was Japan and US. Then 2009, Japan pretty much dominated. And then in 2010, like, people were getting a little more serious about the whole VGCs thing. There was regionals now in the US, and you didn't have to go like with the lottery to get in, because back then you weren't, like, even if you showed up at the right time at the tournament, you weren't guaranteed to get a spot, since spots were limited. So 2010 was probably like a really big change in terms of that, since now everyone could always play, and people got a lot more serious about it. There was regionals, you had stipends to nationals and things like that, and a lot of really cool storylines to follow. While in Europe we only had nationals, which kind of sucked, but still pretty cool. At Worlds, yeah, due to the way that the Europeans circuit was set up, like, many of the best players from Europe didn't manage to qualify for Worlds or couldn't afford to go. And in the end, it was once again US against Japan. This time though, Ray Rizzo, yeah, claiming his first title there. He had a Trick Room based team. Like, his team wasn't super crazy, but it was still like pretty strong, of course. He had Hariyama, interestingly enough, and then Dialga Cresselia with Trick Room and Kyogre Groudon, so he could go for something like Ludicolo Kyogre lead and then Cresselia Groudon in the back, which is just super solid, and just like most of the time it would come down to playing. His finals match was also really memorable and pretty crazy as well, so if you haven't watched that, then you should also check that out. Yeah, substitute Lugia with Blizzard and Earth Power making an appearance there. I think that was a set. It was pretty insane, and also the match was like super crazy. Infernape was not super common, but kind of cool because it was faster than like all of the Ubers, or almost all of them, and you could like use Fake Out and then support your Ubers that could set up substitutes and stuff like that. And yeah, that match was also pretty good. Hui's team also really stands out here, as he was using Trick Room Iron Ball Mewtwo in this tournament and Parasect. So yeah, that was a pretty crazy team, but he managed to go through Swiss and then unfortunately lost in top 8. But yeah, that was like one of the craziest teams in the early years of VGC to make it super far. But then, what am I saying? Then we also have Lantern and Rotom Mao here in the top 8. And then yeah, Ryan and Alan, I think they are the only brothers that top cut Worlds in the same division. But don't quote me on that. But let's check the list. I'm not sure, like, there shouldn't be any others. But yeah, that's just like a random fact. And they also had different teams, which I thought was pretty impressive. The fact that both of them top cut Worlds, but both of them also, like, they probably worked together, but they had different teams. And so next year, for me personally, I also try to give some background on my experience in those years. I played a lot in 2010. Like, back then the community we had was Skarmbliss, and there was like weekly live tournaments there where everyone, like all the good players, participated in them, and everyone was using different teams and good teams, trying their best. And I was pretty young back then. I was like 14 years old. But I could kind of hang with the big guys, and was starting to get a little bit more confident in my skills, as I was like also winning some of those live tournaments. But then we only had nationals, and I didn't really do too hot there. So that was that. But then the next year in 2011, I like played quite a lot again. The format then was only mons from the new games, from Black and White, were allowed, and that was pretty insane, like what happened at Worlds there, because everyone was using the same mons. You can see everyone, like, except for Zoc, because he's a hipster. Oh, by the way, another thing that's interesting about this year is that Japan, unfortunately, due to the tragedy of the Fukushima nuclear catastrophe, the whole circuit got cancelled that year. So yeah, they didn't have, I think maybe like this guy got an invite, but because he was second at Worlds the year before, and then again maybe someone from seniors as well, or like from juniors. But yeah, Japan didn't have any invites that year from their circuit, and so it was for the first time it was US against Europe, and Ray once again, as you know, came out on top. But yeah, what I was saying is everyone had the same thing. Everyone had Thunderous, a lot of people Tornadus, Scrafty, Terrakion. Yeah, the Italian guys had the same team with Hexorus, Crocodile, and Electros. Interestingly enough, Amoonguss was pretty popular. Jelly Sand. There just wasn't too many different mons that you could use. But what Ray did that season, and that's still to this day, I think that was the most incredible team that we've ever seen. I mean, like the only one that came close to having the same domination in terms of like having good matchups every single round was probably Wolf and my Worlds team this season. But yeah, this team, I'm not sure how he managed to go 4-2. I think he went 4-2 in Swiss with that team, because I just don't see how he did that, because that was just like the best team in the tournament easily, and I don't know. It was just super cool. He had like bulky Thunderous. Everyone else here was running offensive Thunderous with like Electric Jam or whatever, or Charty Berry or something. But he had defensive Charty Berry Thunderous, which was bold and could take 2 Rock Slides from Terrakion. And then he also had like Thunder Wave, and he could like stall with his Thunderous, and that was just like a very, very new approach to how Thunderous was used. No one else did that, and that is probably what single-handedly gave him an advantage in almost all of those other matchups. Then he also had special defensive Conkeldurr with Citrus Berry that could take Flying Gem, like it could take Acrobatics after Flying Gem was consumed, I think, so like super bulky. Gothitelle was built to outspeed max speed Amoonguss, and it had Safeguard, so he could, like, some people use max speeds Amoonguss because in Tailwind, max speed Amoonguss is 1 point faster than max speed Thunderous and Tornadus, so you could spoil them. But yeah, his Gothitelle outsped that, and it had Safeguard. The Escavalier was there only to beat Wolf's team, because he had a substitute Escavalier that would work really well against Trick Room, and the only thing that Wolf could really do about that was his Embar. But then the other mons, like the Gothitelle for example, would just shut down the Embar. And so, yeah, that team just did really, really, really well and was a super strong team. Then the other really cool team that is common, or that is popular, is Wolf's Trick Room team. That was Wolf's first year of competition. He won regionals that year, he won nationals that year, and he got really close, only losing to Ray in the top 8 of Worlds here. Yeah, his team was pretty interesting. Oh, in fact, he didn't use the Scarf Terrakion here, but he went with 3 fighting types. Yeah, it's such a crazy team. And he was like the only guy to run dedicated Trick Room that year, I think. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, once again, everyone was using the same thing, and then Ray just crushed everyone, and Wolf also crushed everyone. So that was a pretty cool year in terms of storylines as well. The next season, Japan was back in, but they only had 2 invites, I think. Only Junpei Yamamoto and Huryu, of course, got invited to Worlds. So yeah, they sneaked in there as 8th place, but Japan not really having too much of an impact on this year's Worlds either. Seijun coming out, that was his first Masters Worlds, and yeah, the rules now were, the game was still black and white, but now everyone was allowed except for dark white. So that was kind of cool. That's also no Smurgles. But yeah, a lot of people used Cresselia. It was probably the best one in the format. Tyranitar was super good, Garchomp was really good, Metagross was super good, Steel type was not nerfed. Heatran probably was the call for that tournament with Levitate, and Wolf was the only guy to know of that combination, or to use that combination there. And once again, it came down to Ray against Wolf. So yeah, basically those 2 years were just really dominated by those 2 players, as they met in the finals this time. And yeah, Ray won, spoilers alert. And yeah, that would be the last top cut of Wolf for quite a while. So yeah, he came super close that year, but then not hitting the close combat into the Tyranitar, but instead into the Cresselia was probably not the smartest idea. But yeah, he used the Executor, he used Heatran, and from that point on he was established as one of the best in the game. Sejun was not super popular. He got second place at Seniors Worlds the year before, but not many people knew him. But then afterwards, he of course continued. Like, his consistency is also like incredible. If you just look at this, he got 5th here, top 8 here, top 8 here, and then he won. So that's also something that only Ray did, I think, top cutting 3 times in a row. And Wolf just joined the club of 3 top cuts past year. So yeah, then also we had Matt Call and Fuego, by the way, also coming in with his consecutive Worlds top cut. Spain had represented Europe again, and yeah, that was the first Worlds where I was in attendance, but I couldn't make any impact on the outcome here. But yeah, that had quite a lot of good matches. Like top 8, we had Wolf against Sejun, for example. And then the finals, of course, Wolf against Ray. Then 2013, same mons were allowed, but Black and White 2 added some new stuff. We now had the Therian forms on Landorus, and that was used a lot. Then we also got Eruption Heatran as an event from Pokemon Ranger. And Eruption Heatran, which was always, like, it was nature locked into Quiet. And that was super strong. And then we also got Hammer Arm Conkeldurr. So, just those 3 additions changed everything. Because here, you're not seeing, like, there was only 1 Heatran here, no Conkeldurr. And here, you're seeing 3 Conkeldurrs in the top 3, basically, and 3 Heatrans. So that was really different. Then also Defiant got released on Tornadus, so you're seeing that here to counteract the Landorus T that was so popular there. And then of course also people used what they learned from the previous format, and so everyone had like a head start, so to say, and the format didn't start at 0 because people already had an idea of which mons are common and which mons are popular. And so yeah, we did feature the first European World Champion in Arash Omadi defeating Ryosuke Kosuke in the finals. Not too much of an exciting set probably, but still, like, we were there live and cheering on for Arash for the first European champion, and yeah, that was definitely pretty hype. We did see Sejun coming out here with a totally different team than what he used all of that format previously. With that Magmar TR team, and it's pretty interesting because even though Worlds was so tough to call in the end, like Ryosuke and Eren had almost the same team, and then Ben Gold, who doesn't play anymore, I think, and Sejun almost had the same team. Like you're seeing Raiden here instead of Marowak for Lightning Rod, and then we're seeing Volcarona instead of Magmar as a Fire type redirector. Like Magmar was used because of Follow Me, and then Latias and Tornadus also do similar jobs, so they had essentially like a very similar team. And then Matthias Tuvur managed to get the first World's top cut for Germany, which should be the first of many to follow in the years after that. But yeah, I didn't particularly enjoy playing that format too much, and I'm not really sure why, but it was like there was many gems. Like you had Fighting Gem Conkeldurr with Hammer Arm. It wasn't Hammer Arm that was released, it was Iron Fist, the ability on Conkeldurr. And then you had Fire Gem Eruption Heatran, and I don't know, it was just not really my type of format. But it also had some really cool teams, as you can see in the Magmar and so on. And Enosh also top cutting Worlds here with a pretty cool team that featured Substitute Nasty Blood Thunderous, for example, and Excadrill without Sand. Next season, and that's probably where most of you guys were around, since that is after the release of X and Y, which got a ton of new players in. And yeah, Sejun finally won the event after coming close with top 8 twice in a row. And with the beloved Pachirisu, I don't think that I have to comment on that too much. 14 was like one of my favorite formats, definitely. And it featured like a decent variety of mons, but Mega Mawile, and Garchomp and Tyranitar, like they were still pretty common. not gonna lie. But yeah. Quite a few different things, like the rain team, offensive rain, sand kind of team from Lee, and more bulky teams from Sekiam and Colin, and then also like hyper offensive Pachirisu team with Gothitelle from Sejun. That was pretty cool to see. And also this crazy team with Sheer Cold Lapras made it into the top 8 somehow, which is the first top cut for Australia. So yeah, more countries getting involved into the circuit, and you would think that diversity is what would follow, but nope. Next up, we did have 2015, and Japan just dominated the whole competition. They had as many participants as never before. They had played. Japan didn't really particularly enjoy playing VGC 14, but through all of the year, they already played the open format with legendaries allowed, like Battlespot doubles, and not the restricted decks, which was Kalis decks only. So they were super prepared. They knew what would happen in this format. Everyone else was still like using dumb stuff, but they had figured it out that, yeah, just pairing up the strongest mons in this format works and does really well. And yeah, I don't know. It was just a very... It was a year where I think we learned quite a bit as to how they approach the game and how it works, and how everything can come together with a good team. Like, this was literally the 6 most common Pokemon on one team, and that won Worlds. And yeah, I just failed to see that. Like, I knew what Shulk was before Worlds, but yeah, Wolfie's team did have a pretty good matchup against those teams, and so we kind of ruled it out as a call for Worlds. But yeah, it was the thing to do, and yeah, worked pretty well. Of course, many people say that if we had a top 16 cut that year, then maybe the top 8 would have looked a little different, and maybe even the top 4 and the winner. But it's super hard to call, of course, and that's just how the format is, I suppose. And then 2016, which probably now all of you should know. Yeah, some more countries, like Portugal got the first World's top cut. No Japanese in cut whatsoever. And yeah, Wolf finally won the title with Raichu, Mega Gengar. Yeah, still to this day one of the best teams I've ever used and built. And also, in my probably biased opinion, one of the best teams that ever, like, for the metagame at the time of Worlds, it was just like the perfect thing, I think. I don't know. I really like that team. And then yeah, we also had like some variety here in the top cut. I think most people expected the top cut of 16 to look a lot more like 15, but with like big 6 teams. But then we didn't see that at all in the end, and instead we had Bronzong and Kyogre Ray dominate. So yeah, that's just kind of it. I didn't really follow chat through all of that, but I might actually, I might highlight this and put it on YouTube. So if you watch this on YouTube, then I did that. And so yeah, then I guess bye. But to you guys in chat, yeah, I'll catch